Welcome everyone to another episode of 10-Minute Poker Tips. I got a special guest today, Dave Tuchman, who is a WSOP commentator extraordinaire. Him and I used to grind cash games back in the day at the Bicycle Casino a long time ago, so I know he's also a hell of a poker player. But thank you, David, for coming on the show.
My pleasure, man. Good to be here. I like to see you here rather than across the felt.
You too, believe me. I think it's a big deal. I don't think people understand how big of a deal it is to be a WSOP commentator. I feel like it's kind of the best of the best. It's a very select group of people that actually get to do it. And I think it's hard to even become a guest commentator on there. So I would love to hear a little bit. What was it about your background that made you a good commentator in the first place?
I don't know. I mean, I've always been pretty outgoing. I have a little bit of I just don't care what people think about me.
That's true.
Which I think you need if you're going to be in kind of the public light, because, anytime you're doing something, whether you're an actor or a journalist, or in my case, a broadcaster, you're going to get a lot of hate and you're going to get a lot of love. You have to have pretty thick skin and be able to deal with the hate. I still remember when I first started commentating, even before the World Series of Poker, there was a forum online and it was, David Tuchman sucks as a commentator. And I sent it to my mom and I was like, Mom, look, I made it.
Yeah, that's the type of attitude that you have. I feel like you'll just take the negativity and be like, yeah, this is awesome.
Listen, I always try to tell people, I'm like, listen, if you're going to troll or you're going to be a hate or whatever it was, I'm like, hey, be funny, be funny. I mean, listen, the funny thing is that a lot of times the trolling and the hate, if you can get past, and it's hard, if you can get past the insecure and woe is me attitude, there are some nuggets of good constructive criticism in there. Now, you've got to search, right? It's like a search and rescue thing. You've got to get a dog in there and look for him, but there are. Sometimes it's like, wow, okay, you know what? Maybe the guy said it in the wrong way, but could I be less talkative here so we can hear the table more? And there's some things like that.
I think it is difficult sometimes to parse through bullshit criticism versus real ones, but if you can objectively find the nuggets and just be objective about it, this is how we grow and this is how we improve.
Yeah. Obviously it's difficult because human nature, my son plays ice hockey and I coach, and sometimes you say something like, if you give criticism, a lot of times, even kids, and we grow up, right away we're on the defensive.
Yeah.
Right away we get on the defensive. And I think as a poker player or as a broadcaster, but really in life, if somehow you can figure out a way to not immediately go on the defensive, can grow from that.
Yeah, absolutely. It being such a high bar to be a WSOP commentator, I would love to hear, number one, how did you even get the job? And then number two, for people out there who are interested in doing poker commentary themselves or even doing guest commentary, what tips would you give to the poker community?
Yeah, two different answers, obviously. So I was a broadcaster already, and I was doing a cash game in LA, and I moved to London, actually, and I made friends with one of the producers for the World Series of Poker. First, I got a job as a producer. I'd walk around the cameraman because he knew I knew poker. He was like, okay, when you spot something that'll be good for the cameraman, tell the cameraman to film it, and then you just write down what happened, get the players' names and stuff like that. So I kind of got in through that side of it a little bit, but I was already a commentator, and the producers knew that's what I wanted, but that job wasn't there yet. And then the following fall, the World Series of Poker Europe was again in London, and they had me do some commentary for it. And I was, obviously really excited, and then 2011 rolled around, and ESPN comes out, and they offered me the job, and I was like, oh my God, wow. It was crazy. And then unfortunately, ESPN dropped it right away, like the whole live thing, and they just did post-production, and that's been Lon and Norm's job for such a long time. But I decided right then, I was like, no, I want to do this. So I reached out to a couple of people over at the World Series of Poker, Ty Stewart, Seth Polanski, and I said, hey, are you guys doing live streams this summer? And they were like, yeah, we are, but we just figured you'd be out of our budget, because I had done the ESPN the year before. If you remember, back in the day, we did like the Black Booth Mojo, and it was just me in a box in the Rio doing commentary on all of the events. I mean, I was there for like 42 days, and I commentate for 39 of them. And some days, 2 different tables. It was crazy, but it was really no frills. And they didn't want to put a lot of money into it. They didn't, no idea. They were like, we're not monetizing this. So they told me, they were like, we thought of you, but we didn't think you want to do it for the money. And I was like, no, I'll do it. And they were like, well, we're not going to pay much. And I was like, that's okay.
Take every opportunity that gets handed to you.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's something to that. I'm really anti free internships. That's a different, that we can have another podcast on that. But in this category, I just realized I was already doing broadcasting, but I just realized what a big brand the World Series of Poker was, to be that guy, to be able to do all the live streams in the summer. And that was 2012. I just realized how big that would be for my career and my brand. And obviously that has led to so many other opportunities. But it was a situation where I was like, okay, listen, as long as I'm not losing money, you're paying me enough to kind of be in Vegas this summer, and I'm getting a little bit of money, I'll make it work. At this point, by the way, in 2012, I wasn't married and I didn't have any kids. So I'm at a much different point in my life now than I was then. I could make decisions like that.
Yeah, so then for those who are trying to be you, to be the next Dave Tuchman, what tips would you give them?
Aim higher. Aim higher. Now, the nice thing is I think today's world, there's a lot of opportunities out there. If you want to be a broadcaster, you can do it. You can go on Twitch, go on YouTube. There's a lot of avenues out there, whether it's Brad Owen, obviously, or Andrew Nemi. But you can actually you can stream poker from your house and get experience doing that. And then there's also a lot of live streams. I work with Hustler Casino Live right now. Yeah. But you got that. You got the Lodge. You got some things in Vegas. And I think you reach out to them. Maybe you do a couple of streams on Twitch. So you've got some experience. And then you reach out to these people and you say, I want to do it.
Yeah.
And if they ask you, be like, oh, this is what you can show them, what you've done. So it's a whole new world where I think there's a lot of opportunities out there. Obviously, there's a lot of competition out there, but there's far more opportunity than there ever was. When I first got into this business, I mean, I knew everybody who was a poker broadcaster. It was like, Lon, me, Ali, James Hardigan. There just weren't many of us because it was obviously a really niche field. And it's grown and it's blown up, and that's amazing. So, but I do think there's a lot of opportunities out there for somebody who wants it.
That's a great idea because you can give yourself a tryout. It's almost like putting something on your resume, right? If you can show that you actually even have any broadcasting chops at all, and also just by doing it, you'll learn a bunch of stuff.
One of the best things for me, I'll be honest, and I know this is short, is when I first started doing live streaming, I did a cash game here in LA, and we didn't get much of a following. But I was really green. I mean, I was comfortable in front of a camera, and I knew how to talk, but I was really green, and I was able to kind of suck and learn on the job without too many people seeing me.
That's true.
And I do think there's an opportunity for you to do that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with, right now you can get a poker live stream at home or get a poker show at home, get rid of the volume, and then put your own commentary on it. Practice.
A lot of the recommendations for content creators is just to put your first couple of videos up, even if you're super embarrassed by it, just to get started. But then, like you're saying, it's a really good tryout for you to do it in a low stakes kind of way. But it seems like the second half of the equation, though, is that you're able to reach out to a Ty Stewart and be like, hey, give me a shot, man. How would you recommend that poker players network a little bit to get to know people that could connect them to opportunities?
Yeah, now it might be hard to get to Ty Stewart. Obviously, that's a World Series of Poker. Yeah. But listen, I mean, there's a lot of casinos out there that have live streams. Yeah. A lot of them are looking for commentators. In today's day and age with social media, I don't think it's that hard to reach out and tell people what you want. This is advice I would tell my own son. Nobody's going to give you anything. Especially nobody's going to give you anything if they don't know what you want. You know what I mean? I remember when I was like 18, 19 years old, I was a golf caddy. The people I would caddy were always like doctors and lawyers and stuff. And I was always try to hear what they would say, in terms of their advice. And one of the advice would say, be like, if you want something, ask for it. Don't be embarrassed. Be like, hey, I want to sit in that chair. I want to be a commentator. Go, how can I do that? And be like, okay, well, do you have any experience? No. Okay, well, let's see what you can do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And what's the worst that can happen? They can just say no, and then you can try again.
Exactly. And you go home and practice on your own and put a little reel together. Yeah. Show them what you can do. And be like, hey, I want to do it again. And send them an email every month, not every 2 days. Yep. Send an email every month and just let them know, hey, any openings? And at some point, listen, one of the regular commentators is going to get sick. Yeah. One of the regular commentators is going to quit. One of the regular commentators is going to go on vacation. Who knows? And they'll be like, you know what? Yeah, sure. Come on down.
Yeah. That kid who's branded his name into my email inbox. Let's give that dude a shot.
Yeah, hey.
I feel like you've been doing this for quite some time. So what was some of the wildest things that you've seen on a poker stream at the WSOP?
Oh my gosh. Some of the wildest things I've seen. I mean, whether it's World Series Poker or anywhere, I have had, the funniest thing is that some of the wildest things I've ever seen have actually not been at the World Series of Poker because I commentated on $1 million cash game way back when. Yeah. I mean, this is like 20 years ago now, right? Almost. Yeah. And at the time I commentated on the largest hand in the history of poker cash game in TV. It was Tom Dwan versus Phil Ivey. And then fast forward 18 years later, I commentated on the biggest hand in poker again. It was about 3x the size of it. Yeah. First one was like 1.1 million. This one was like 3.3 million. Yeah. But again, it involved Tom Dwan.
Oh my God.
And it's like, what are the chances? So I have reached out to Tom and I know him. And I'm just like, Tom, I think I deserve some sort of commission. I mean, something, maybe artwork. I don't know. Yeah. A steak dinner.
Feels like you either is good luck charm or something.
One of the craziest things, and there's probably a million different things that are amazing that I've seen. Crazy though, World Series of Poker, the final table that I believe Trevor Pope won many, many years ago. The guy who finished in second place in that tournament didn't play a hand until they were heads up.
Are you serious?
The final
table?
Yeah. Trevor Pope came to the final table with like 60% of the chips. It was like insane. And he had his dog. He literally raised like 21 straight hands. He was just like, and everybody was playing. Everybody knew they were playing for second place. It was just like, okay. I mean, I guess ICM was like starting to be a thing.
Yeah.
Right? And people were just really aware of it. And except for a couple of players, nobody was fighting back. Wow. And the players that were fighting back, they weren't beating Trevor. Trevor was just running like sun. And the guy who ended up finishing second place did not play a hand.
Oh my gosh. That is wild.
I think I'm right. Maybe he played one, but I'm pretty sure he didn't play a hand.
That's got to be some sort of record to ladder like that at an entire final table. And just
dude just made like an extra like $280,000.
Yeah.
Right? And all he did was sit there. I'm sure people were like, oh my God, what a nit. How boring. This is terrible. And the guy's like, yeah. So boring.
That's amazing. David, this was incredible. I think the poker community is going to greatly appreciate the tips that you've given, not only just for a commentary, but I feel like you've given a lot of good life lessons in here for people. Go for what you want, right? Take the opportunities that are being given to you. So this was awesome, man.
Hey, my pleasure. Hey, if anybody wants to reach out, if you have a question for me, reach out. I'm at Tuchman Sports on Twitter, or X, whatever the hell you want to call it these days, and just ask me.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And I will hopefully see you over the World Series.
Yeah, for sure, buddy.